coming up on today's show.
And all the successes of the things I did in the hotel business were helping me be successful as a leader.
I think this concept of productivity, because we, again, like you say, we always think about productivity as what can I do? But I'm interested about how we create this culture so we can get everybody on the same page.
What goals do you want to accomplish this year? Or we could just work on a little goal setting. So I think it's important that from the get-go you identify what it is we're working towards and trying to accomplish as a team.
The connection between productivity and leadership today on Keeping You Organized. Well, hello and welcome to Keeping You Organized. Today we're going to get into the leadership mode, and we're going to connect productivity with leadership. And I can't think of anyone better to talk about leadership than the former leader of NAPO, Ellen Fay, ellenfay.com. Welcome back to Keeping You Organized.
Thank you, John. Glad to be with you today.
Yes, you are the past president now, or is Ellen DeLapp the past president? I get it mixed up.
Yes. So okay. I'm the past president. As of May 15th, Ellen DeLapp is past president, and Susie Hayman's our new president.
Awesome.
So I'm like one past president removed.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm sure you're going to go down in history as probably one of the best. Knowing the way you are.
It was an amazing experience. I learned and grew so much. And yes, you work hard, but everything I gave to NAPO, I got back tenfold. So it's been great.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about leadership, which you have a lot of experience with, and I know you do a lot of coaching on this as well. But we're kind of tying leadership to productivity. So what's on your mind about this? What's our setup here?
Well, everyone thinks that productivity is all about themselves, but you could only do so much yourself. At the end of the day, if the people you work with aren't being productive and in a good place, it doesn't really help. So I kind of came back at this from the back end. Before I was an organizer and before I was a productivity coach, I was in the hotel business. And I did this in my 20s and early 30s, and I was able to get really high-functioning, highly productive teams. And I never knew why. And then I became an organizer, and I got really good at creating streamlined systems, and I became a product business organizer, worked with lots of business clients. And then I did my NAPO leadership, 7 years on the national board. And all the successes of the things I did in the hotel business were helping me be successful as a leader and really get a lot of good work done. And I kind of went back and I looked and was trying to connect productivity and leadership. And it just came all together one day for me that unless you are creating a really great environment for your team to be their best selves, you're not going to be productive as a one person. I mean, one person could take care of themselves, but we are all leaders in different ways. We lead the people we work with, the people we volunteer. We lead our bosses. We lead our subcontractors. I know I lead my website designer or the people, just everybody I come across with in life. So all of these skills, what I've really figured out is that you could be a good leader and not get a lot done or get something done, but to really have a high-performing team, you have to be a great leader.
Awesome. Well, this is great, too, because I'm sure you've heard the term organizing a bucket of minnows sometime in your career.
Yes.
So I want to get into this, creating the culture, because whether you're an independent, like you said, and you're dealing with subcontractors, maybe they're not your employees, or you have a team of people that report to you or who you report to, I think this concept of productivity, because again, like you say, we always think about productivity as what can I do? But I'm interested about how we create this culture so we can get everybody on the same page. So what would be the first thing we'd want to do?
Well, I think there's three really critical things when you're creating a really productive team. One is to get clear on your goals and priorities. What is important? Because I know you know this, John, from talking to all us productivity people. If everything's important, nothing's important. And when you're not clear on what your goals are and what your priorities are, then everyone's moving in a million different directions. And I always say, it's like you take an eyedropper and you put a little bit here, a bit here, a bit here, you have a big wet mess. But if you concentrate and focus on the most important thing, you end up with a glass of water. Right. So it's the same thing with our work. We have to be really focused on what the most important work is. So that's the first element.
Okay. Well, actually, before, how do you help people do that though? I'm curious about that because it sounds easy, right? Oh, everyone just make sure what's your number one priority. But I mean, there's probably also a lot of times when my number one priority and your number one priority maybe don't line up. So how do you work through that?
Right. So if I'm working like my productivity coaching clients, most of them are employed by larger businesses, and they challenge how do I know what's most important? Well, I ask them, go have a conversation with your bosses, not just your boss, but the people you interact with. Find out, don't try to guess, find out from your boss what's most important. Some organizations have you do your annual goals or your yearly goals or your 6-month goals, but those don't always tell you. Sometimes they can guide you, but go talk to your boss and find out what's important to you. Then you integrate it, what's important with your boss, with what's important with you, and what's important to you keeping your team in a good, healthy way of taking care of the people you work with. If I'm working with a group, a nonprofit, a small business, an individual, we could always do a strategic plan. What goals do you want to accomplish this year? Or we could just work on a little goal setting. So I think it's important that from the get-go, you identify what it is we're working towards and trying to accomplish as a team. And it can be as simple as 3 goals, or like I know a lot of my colleagues say, my word for the year is XYZ. Come up with a word for the year. Like my word for the year this year, well, last year was great. It was from NAPO to Naples. I got off the NAPO National Board and I moved to Naples, Florida. That was my slogan from last year. This year, I just want to get settled. I want to get my business set up. I want to renovate my new condo. Love my wallpaper behind me, right?
Yeah, love it.
So there's work to do.
Yes.
So a lot of people just pick, it could be as simple as a word, or you could have a 5-page strategic plan. Sometimes just writing 3 short-term goals and 3 long-term goals is effective.
Great. So some sort of planning, I think, and that makes a lot of sense. And we have tons of podcasts on that, and I think that's really good. You kind of know where you're going, what's the map, what's important, and there's all kinds of different ways that you can determine that. So, okay, so now that we kind of know what's important, what's kind of the next step of this culture creating?
So you want to have systems and processes in place and streamlined and easy enough that people can deliver them and clear, so that they're really clear in the expectations of their work. And those systems and processes are probably the things you talk to with other productivity consultants. And it's, people say, how do I do this task, or how do I manage my calendar? So those are the really typical productivity things that we talk about. But it's really important to have good, solid, clear systems in place so people know what to do and how to do it. So the rote tasks are on autopilot, and the energy, the creativity, the collaboration is all focused on how do we grow, how do we be better, and how do we be innovative.
Okay, I want to dig a little more into that, but we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, I want to talk more about how we create some of those systems, because I know that that I've seen that in various organizations, how that can really be helpful. So we're with Ellen Fay, ellenfay.com, talking about productivity and how it connects with leadership, and we'll be right back. We're back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about how productivity connects with leadership. And we've been talking with Ellen Fay from ellenfay.com. And Ellen, so before the break, we're talking about this idea of systems and getting procedures in place. And I've seen some places where they have the notebooks, and if this happens, then do this. And that's a very one extreme. You got other places where maybe it's a little more informal. But when you're meeting with clients, do you have some techniques that you use with them on how you set some of those systems up?
I do. Everyone's looking for the next piece of technology to solve all of their problems. And what I like to do with them is drill down to really simple process. So, that old saying, garbage in, garbage out, or if you automate a mess, you still have a mess. Mm-hmm. So I don't care about what app you use or what tool you use. That's second. What's first is coming up with the process. And one of the things I really believe is if you make it too complex, you never are going to be able to integrate it. So I want a really streamlined, simple process that I work with them to learn and to practice. And then once we get the process integrated, kind of like on autopilot, so they don't have to think about it too much, then we could say, what tech tool are we going to use to support that?
Right. And would you do something like a flow chart, or is it just sometimes a conversation where you're just trying to say, tell me the different steps in this, whatever you're looking at?
People, I think very analytically and logically, but my clients don't. So I do this technique with them I call Postit Planning. I just have them write all the elements of the project on a Post-it, each one on a different Post-it. Then they could put them in order, because the Post-its you could just move around. So it's very manual. I mean, I know you can do this on Trello, and I know you could automate it on Word, and anyone can automate anything on anything. But the bottom line is that's secondary. It's the idea of what are the steps and what is the order. Then once you get the order, you could put who's responsible, put what date you want. You could work, okay, I want it done by this date, so let's work backwards. How long is this going to take?
Right. I think that Post-it note analogy is great because, especially for people that are tactile and love to move things around, but or you go into the conference room with the big, big sheets of like those. What are they?
Big Post-it things.
The giant Post-its, and you're putting them up, and people are brainstorming, and it's a lot of fun, But okay, well, what other?
But everyone I know can manage to figure out each item.
Yes.
And even my most globally creative clients can do that. I just did that last week with a woman who's a composer, a musician, and she is so creative, but she was able to identify the elements of the project and then put them in order, and then she had a plan to work.
Awesome. Okay, anything else that we need to talk about as far as creating the culture, other elements?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so the very last element is that creating an environment. So now you have the systems in place, you know what you're doing, but here's what's different. It's that your job as a manager and as a leader, or whatever, as a volunteer leader, as a leader of whoever you're leading, is to create, there's a new term, it's called a psychologically safe environment. And this word came from a woman named Amy Edmondson she's a Harvard Business School researcher, and she has found that when people feel psychologically safe, and I want to read you this definition.
Okay.
Her definition is, where'd I go? Is team members feel safe to take risks and to be vulnerable in front of each other.
Yes.
Google did a research project too, and they said that the most important things for a successful team is that people knew what was expected of them, that there was structure and clarity, that there was meaning to their work, that their work was impactful, making a difference. But psychological safety, where people felt safe to be their best self, was the most important thing, that nothing else mattered. They tried to look for an algorithm where they said, we put this kind of diversity on a team and that kind. at the end of the day, the thing that made their teams most successful is when people felt that their managers or their leaders created an environment for them to take risks and be creative, and that it was okay to make a mistake, and that there was support.
Right.
And just like the most interesting research project that Amy Edmondson did, she wrote a book called Fearless Organizations. And she initially did 6 months of research in a hospital, analyzing or researching different teams. And she was sure that the teams that felt psychologically safe would make the least mistakes. And after 6 months, she got her results, and it was exactly the opposite. The teams that, I know this is crazy, the teams that identified as psychologically safe showed having the most mistakes. And she's like, how can this be? What's going on? Well, what she found out was the teams that were psychologically safe reported their mistakes so they could work together to fix them and make them better. The teams that were not psychologically safe did not report their mistakes.
Yeah, it just gets down to people want to cover themselves, and they'll take their own personal safety over the safety of the team anytime, right?
Right.
And so that's a great point there. Anything?
And then,
go ahead.
yeah, the thing with the psychological safety, there's another guy I follow. His name's David Rock with the Neuro Leadership Institute, and he came up with this SCARF model. So he said, to create psychological safety, what matters is creating this culture where people feel S is for status, I matter, I'm a part of this team, and my existence makes a difference. C is for certainty, I know what to expect. I'm not afraid of something coming out of the blue and knocking me off. And that's like, remember we were talking about the processes and knowing what to expect with your systems. Yeah. So that helps the certainty. The autonomy, the third letter is A. So it's certainty, status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. The autonomy is that people don't feel micromanaged. They've been hired to do their job. They've been selected to do their job. Give them the space to go do it themselves. Of course, you want to follow up and create ways of support, but let the people do what they were hired to do. Relatedness is the fourth letter of SCARF, and that's I belong here, my connections matter, my relationships matter. At the end of the day, all the research, Gallup polls, Google research, motivational studies, the thing that motivates people to go above and beyond the most is a sense of belonging and know that they belong where they are, they're connected, a connectedness, and that the fact that they're a part of the team really matters. Right. And then the F that David Rock talks about in SCARF is for fairness, and that people are treated fairly. And it's really interesting. It's not just that I'm treated fairly, but it's like everyone's treated fairly. Because if somebody else isn't, that poses a threat to you as well.
Right.
So there's so much about creating this culture, but when you can make people feel safe and know that they're not walking on eggshells, and that you as their leader are going to support them and have their back, that is, like, to me, that's key. Like, honest, open, transparent, don't hold back, don't hide information. Those are the secrets that really help a leader help their team give the most, go above and beyond, and that's how you get maximum productivity.
Yeah, the connection is really clear now. I think that's awesome. Well, Ellen, this has been phenomenal. I just love this topic. Before we go, why don't you tell people a little bit about the kinds of clients you work with and how people can get a hold of you if they want to work with you?
Thank you, John. I have moved pretty much out of the hands-on organizing realm, and I do a lot of, most of my business is phone coaching now. I also am doing strategic planning for small businesses and nonprofits. So I'd love to do that kind of work. I'll be going over to Miami next month and up to New Jersey to work on strategic plannings for different nonprofits. Because it's like creating that, that structure, knowing what you're doing. So that's important. The phone coaching is productivity. People call me because their calendars are a little messed up and they don't know what to do first. But at the end of the day, we end up talking about how they can be more effective and better leaders and bring their teams along. So we do all of that. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. You can go to my website and read more, ellenfay.com, ELLENFAYE.com. And I have a blog. You can sign up for my blog. And I'm just write about different things in this realm every week. Just a quick, I want to give you a 2 or 3 minute read. Nothing that's so long that you're going to file it for later. I want you to read it and put it away and delete it and go on with your life. So if you need anything, email me at ellen@ellenfay.com.
Awesome. Ellen, this is so great. And I thank you for doing that. Thank you for your service with NAPO. Now you got this great life. I was waiting for you to say, though, as you're trying to get yourself organized down there, are you going to have time for golf or not, since you live on a golf course? Or do you even golf?
Well, I'm going to learn to golf. That's on my priorities list.
There you go. That's awesome.
Yep. But I do need to learn, so it's coming soon.
Great. Well, this is a perfect time to do it. So, all right. Well, we will have you back again, I'm sure, and enjoy Naples. And folks, there you have it. Now you know the connection between productivity and leadership, and it really is all about that culture that you create. And come back next time for our next episode of Keeping You Organized.